Westernspring Television. Ours it is.
Here are the top stories of the news. NLC to meet with federal government today over removal of fuel subsidy. Atiku presents 118 exhibits before presidential election petition court against President Tinubu. On the foreign scene, Sudan's army suspends participation in ceasefire talks. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Westernspring Television. My name is Opayemuni. The federal government representatives are expected to meet with the leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, today by 2 p.m. over the planned removal of fuel subsidy. NLC National President Joe Ajaero revealed this today in an interview. He said the position of Labour has been clear that even if President Bola Tinubu has a good intention, alternatives must be provided. Ajaero said the president should have asked questions and find out the implications of fuel subsidy removal on Nigerians on the streets. The NLC boss listed the alternatives to include the repair of the nation's 4 refineries, provision of transportation of alternatives for the Nigerian workers, amongst others. Similarly, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, has said the re-regulation of the oil sector and subsidy removal is the only way to make Nigeria great. IPMAN's National Public Relations Officer, Yakubu Suleiman, said this today while commending President Tinubu for removing subsidy removal in his inaugural speech. Chief spokesman for the All Progressives Congress presidential campaign, Festus Keyamo, has said President Bola Tinubu did not remove fuel subsidy. According to him, a section of the media is mischievously twisting the narrative to read that Tinubu's government has removed subsidy, despite President Tinubu proclaiming that subsidy was gone while giving his inaugural speech on May 29th. Keyamo, who is also a former Minister of State for Labour, rather said that Tinubu's administration only inherited a regime where there was no provision for subsidy in the 2023 Appropriation Act beginning June 2023. To judicial matters, a total of 118 exhibits have been presented before the 5-member panel of the Presidential Election Petition Court by the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, in his case against President Bola Tinubu. Atiku and the PDP approached the tribunal to challenge the Independent National Electoral Commission's declaration of Tinubu, who contested under the All Progressives Congress as winner of the February 25th election. Atiku and the PDP, in their claims against Tinubu, stated that the president was not duly elected by the majority of lawful votes cast at the election. Some of the exhibits tendered in evidence included certified copies of results of the presidential election from the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. Other exhibits include printouts of data obtained from the bimodal voter accreditation system and records of the number of permanent voter cards used by the election across the 36 states and the FCT. In another development, the Labour Party and its presidential candidate, Peter Obi, have opened the petition against President Bola Tinubu, the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, by calling one witness out of the 50 proposed. Before the witness testified, counsel to Peter Obi, Jibrin Okutepa, tendered a judgment from a district court in the United States, which reportedly indicted Tinubu and ordered his forfeiture of $460,000 in drug-related offenses. The Presidential Election Petitions Court reconvened after a week on Tuesday to begin the definite hearing in the petitions by the presidential candidates of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and the Labour Party, alongside their parties challenging Tinubu's victory in the February 25th election. After cross-examination, counsel to Tinubu, Wale Olanipekun, said the witness admitted that the judgment was not registered in Nigeria. Under cross-examination by counsel to APC, Lateef Fagbemi, the witness said the American court judgment had no certificate given under the hand of any American police officer.
We have a certified true copy of the entirety of the record of proceedings from the District Court of Illinois in the United States of America, where $460,000 were forfeited in the proceedings that you will see that involves what appears to be narcotic dishonest substances. So those were the documents we tendered through PW, and they were duly pleaded. We served them, they have it, and everyone has it.
Moving on, an Osun State High Court in Osogbo has sentenced the owner of 18 Hotel, Ile-Ife, Ramon Adedoyin, and 2 others to death by hanging over the murder case of Timothy Adegoke, a master's student of the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Adegoke died in controversial circumstances at Hilton Hotel, owned by Adedoyin, in November 2021. Delivering the judgment, Chief Judge of Osun State, Justice Adekunle Ojo, found Adedoyin, Adeniyi Aderogba, and Kazeem Oyetunde were guilty of the charges against them and were sentenced to death by hanging. They were also sentenced to serve different years of jail terms for other offenses committed, such as conspiracy and unlawful interference with a deceased body in an attempt to cover up the murder. Justice Ojo also said Adedoyin's decision not to enter the witness box meant he agreed to the murder charge pressed against him by the prosecution. The Chief Judge, however, discharged and acquitted 3 other defendants, Kunle Adebayo, Lawrence Oluwole, and Magdalene Chefuna, of all charges against them. As part of the judgment, Justice Ojo held that the Hilux vehicle, which was used by the accused persons to convey the body of Adegoke to where it was buried, as well as the hotel belonging to Adedoyin, should be forfeited to the state. She also held that late Adegoke's children's education be placed under sponsorship of Adedoyin's estate up to the completion of university education. The judge then declared wanted Adedoyin's son, Rahim Adedoyin, who was the managing director of the hotel, and reportedly supervised the dumping of Adegoke's body in a shallow grave before it was recovered by the police.
In the case of the first, third, and fifth defendants, they've been charged for conspiracy to commit murder and murder as well. But that of the seventh defendant, she was only convicted for altering records, and her sentencing had been further adjourned to tomorrow. But that of the first defendant, the third defendant, and the fifth defendant, let me mention their names. The first defendant is Dr. Raymond Adedoyin, and he has been convicted for conspiracy to commit murder and murder, among other counts preferred against him. The third defendant is Adeniyi Aderogba. He was the manager of the hotel. He was the one that admitted that himself, Rahim Adedoyin, who is now at large, the fifth defendant, evacuated the dead body of the late Timothy Adegoke from the hotel, from room 305 where he was lodged, and evacuated it and dumped him at Ede Road. They both admitted, and they were convicted for their various roles in the entire case. So the fifth defendant is Oyetunde Kazeem. He was also a money manager as well in the same hotel. So the 3 of them, including the 7th defendant, have been convicted for conspiracy to commit murder and murder.
The second defendant and the 4th defendant was actually discharged and acquitted, of course, you know, and the 5th defendant was convicted.
So what's the next plan?
Yeah, in line with the provisions of the law, we will consult with our clients and take the necessary steps.
In a related development, an Osun State High Court sitting in Osogbo has sentenced Adedeji Adeshola, the receptionist that received the late Timothy Adegoke when he lodged in the Hilton Honors Hotel, Ile-Ife, in the evening of November 6, 2021, to 2 years imprisonment for altering the receipt issued to the deceased. She was said to have fabricated an order received for the purpose of concealing traces of Adegoke's lodgement at the hotel. The presiding judge, Justice Adekunle Ojo, had on Tuesday found Adeshola guilty of doctoring the hotel receipt issued to the deceased, fabricating an order, and concealing of evidence charged against her. Ojo said the 2 years should start counting from the first day she was detained since the commencement of the matter. Staying with judicial matters, the trial of Chidinma Ojukwu, the key suspect in the murder case of the late Chief Executive Officer of Super TV, Michael Ataga, failed to proceed on Tuesday owing to the absence of a lawyer. Justice Yetunde Adesoya of the Lagos High Court, sitting at the Tafawa Balewa Square, subsequently adjourned till June 8th for the continuation of trial. Chidima, a former 300-level mass communication undergraduate of the University of Lagos, is standing trial alongside one Adedapo Quadri and her sister, Chioma Ebuchu, on 9-count charge bordering on murder, forgery, and stealing, preferred against her by the Lagos state government. At the resumed hearing of a case, the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Adenike Oluwafemi, told the court that she got a message from Ojuku's counsel, Onwuka Ewu, that he was ill. At the last adjourned date of May 4th, the court had admitted in evidence 2 handwritten statements made by Chidinma. In other news, President Bola Tinubu has ordered Department of State Services, DSS, to immediately vacate the office of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, in Ikoyi, Lagos. DSS officials stormed the EFCC Ikoyi office, stopping officials from accessing their workplace. Gunshots were also heard in the area, but Tinubu, in a statement by his media aide, Tunde Rahman, called on the DSS to quit the premises. The DSS had stormed the premises, claiming ownership of the building. A former Lagos Commissioner of Information and Strategy, Dele Alake, says he has not been appointed as a spokesperson of President Bola Tinubu, as after the inauguration on Monday, former Minister of Aviation Femi Fani-Kayode announced on Twitter handle that Alake has been appointed as the president's spokesperson. While speaking on the issue with journalists, the former Director of Strategic Communication of the All Progressives Congress presidential campaign said the news of his appointment was fake. Alake was the Commissioner for Information and Strategy in Lagos between 1999 and 2007, when Tinubu was the governor of the state. You're watching Spring News at 12 on Westernspring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference, otherwise referred to as Congo Conference, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa as initiated by German leader Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference is often called the scramble for and partitioning of Africa, as each of the imperial powers carved separate portions of the continent for themselves without recourse to racial and cultural identities and differences. 137 years after the Berlin Conference was held, Africa remains a legitimized playground for European nations that sought to exploit its wealth and resources and manipulate its human capital to promote trades and investments of Western powers. Westernspring Television identifies Berlin Conference as a major event in history.
Welcome back on Spring News at 12 on Westernspring Television. In Abia State, Governor Alex Oti has directed that all accounts of the state government be immediately frozen, as well as those of its agencies domiciled in every bank and financial institution across the state and country. The governor gave the order on Tuesday in a statement by a special advisor on media and publicity, Ferdinand Ekeoma. In another development, Governor Oti has also approved the appointments of Kenneth Kalu as the Secretary to the State Government and Caleb Ajagba as his Chief of Staff. The Governor's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ferdinand Ekeoma, in a statement on Tuesday, unveiled 6 other appointees, saying the appointments took immediate effect. In Sokoto State, Governor Amanda Liu has directed the reversal of major decisions taken by his predecessor, Aminu Tambuwal, before he left office. This comes barely 24 hours after Tambuwal's exit from office. The press secretary to the Sokoto State Government, Abubakar Bawa, in a statement on Tuesday, noted that the reversal of appointments was made upon Governor Ali's assumption of office. According to the statement, one of the major decisions the governor took on Tuesday was the reversal of all recent appointments into the state civil service made by the outgoing government after March 19th, 2023, with immediate effect. In Osun State, Governor Ademola Adeleke has charged the newly appointed permanent secretary in the civil service to be proactive, diligent with their jobs and be worthy ambassadors of the Osun State workforce. Adeleke stated these at the swearing-in ceremony of a newly appointed permanent secretary held at the Local Government Service Commission in Osogbo, the state capital, on Tuesday. Olayinkale was there and now reports.
Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke has approved the appointment of permanent secretary to the Osun State Civil Service on Monday, 29th, 2023. The governor stated on Tuesday evening at the swearing-in ceremony that the selection of permanent secretary was done with due process, insisting that the inauguration ceremony is a fulfillment of his administration's desire to reposition the civil service and putting an end to the use of coordinating directors in the civil service. He admonished those appointed to be good examples to their subordinates, be punctual to work, and be productive. Adeleke also urged those who did not make the list now not to lose hope, saying the exercise is a continuous process, while compelling them to continue to be diligent.
We have permanent secretaries. We can attest to it, the agent can attest to it, like chief of staff, secretary of government, and all the equivalent things. We put our heads together. We did not cheat anybody. We made sure we did diligence. We do process. Where you come from, as long as you are qualified, you got it. That's just it. So we believe in due process of law and rule of law.
As stated by the head of service, Ayonleye Haino, this is the first of its kind since 2012, and it's put an end to the infamous era of coordinating directors serving as accounting officers of ministries, departments, and agencies of the state government. Ayonleye thereafter advised the new permanent secretaries to be of good conduct and strive to contribute to the development of the state.
By your benefit, by your grace, over the last 10 years, the civil service of Osun State lost its morale and confidence as this government institution was subjected to the whims and counsel of political class. Thanks to God Almighty and your Excellency that today the story is being written.
Speaking on behalf of those appointed was Yetunde Eson, who sincerely thanked the governor for making it a duty to approve the appointment because this is what the other governors who had governed the affairs of Osun State denied them in the last 12 years.
This is a dream we've been looking forward to in the last 12 years. You have renewed our hope. You have given us another life. You have made us not to regret to join the state civil service. We work for the state. We were not well compensated. On behalf of my colleagues in the House, I want to say thank you. We pledge our loyalty to the state. We will serve the state and we will serve the people of Osun.
The Trade Union Congress chairman in the state, Adekola Adebowale, testified that Governor Ademola Adeleke is indeed a listening governor.
Father, last time at the May Day celebration, we demand for this. Immediately I left the field, he told me, Wale Paul, I will give it to you. We thank God that today it's come to pass. We appreciate you, Oga.
The appointment takes immediate effect after swearing the oath of allegiance. Olayinka Ali, Westernspring Television News.
On the foreign scene, Sudan's army has suspended its participation in talks over ceasefire and humanitarian access, raising fears of renewed fighting that has displaced tens of thousands of people. The talks with the rival paramilitary rapid support forces began in the Saudi Arabian port city of Jeddah in early May and had produced a declaration of commitment to protecting civilians and two short-term ceasefire deals that have been repeatedly violated. The Army and the RSF had agreed to extend a week-long ceasefire deal by 5 days just before it was due to expire late on Monday. Until late Tuesday, intense clashes were reported in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, with residents reporting intensive fighting in all three of the adjoining cities that make up Sudan's greater capital. Elsewhere, the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary force has again criticized the Russian military and political elite following the drone attack on Moscow that injured 2 people and damaged property. In a statement posted on Telegram by Press Service on Tuesday, Yevgeny Prigozhin, whose mercenary fighters have played a key role in the war in Ukraine, blamed the drone attack on out-of-touch officials living in Moscow's affluent suburb of Rubliovka. Prigozhin said the defense ministry has done nothing to launch an offensive. In Asia, North Korea said an accident happened as it planned to send up its first space satellite, causing it to crash into the sea. Pyongyang announced earlier it planned to launch a satellite by 11th of June to monitor U.S. military activities, but it now says it will attempt a second launch as soon as possible. The launch sparked a false alarm in the South Korean capital, Seoul, while in Japan a warning was issued to residents of Okinawa in the south. There was chaos and confusion in Seoul as people awoke to the sound of an air raid siren and an emergency message telling them to prepare for an evacuation, only to be told 20 minutes later it had been sent in error. To some business stories, Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, says the federal government still owes the firm the sum of 2.8 trillion naira spent on petrol subsidy. Addressing journalists after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu in Abuja on Tuesday, Kyari said the subsidy payment was no longer sustainable as it hinders the company from funding its core businesses. He also said the NNPC made the petrol subsidy payments from its cash flow, noting that the government has been unable to pay back the 2.8 trillion naira spent so far.
To support the subsidy from the cash flow of the NNPC. That is, when we net off our fiscal obligations of taxes and royalty, there is still a balance that we are funding from our cash flow, and that has become very, very difficult and affecting our other operations. I'm very convinced today that the country can no longer fund this subsidy bill, and they will not be able to pay NNPC. And therefore, we are pleased to note Mr. President's commitment to elimination of this subsidy because they can't afford it anymore, and we will take necessary steps to ensure that we recover our costs from the market, and also being mindful of the fact that a situation like this can lead to exploitation of customers, and we're also working with the regulator who is here with me to see how we can cap any such excessive.
The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, says it is ready to issue licenses to companies interested in petrol importation. Speaking to journalists on Tuesday, Chief Executive Officer of NMDPRA, Farouk Ahmed, said the criteria for importing kerosene and diesel were applicable for the importation of a product. However, Ahmed said several conditions have to be met before the applicants are granted licenses. Currently, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, is a last resort supplier tasked with importing refined petrol to ensure adequate supply and distribution in the country. Now to sports. Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola has been named Manager of the Year by the League Managers Association. It is the third time Guardiola has collected the Sir Alex Ferguson Trophy, voted for by managers across all the divisions. The 52-year-old manager also won the Premier League Manager of the Year award after his side clinched a third consecutive title and fifth in 6 seasons.
Manchester City's Pep Guardiola. Sore, isn't it? It's really sore. Well deserved.
Thank you so much for this amazing award, Sir Alex Ferguson Trophy for the League Manager of the Year. I want to share it first of all for my fellow nominees, for all the managers in the UK, but especially for Mikel Arteta, for Eddie Howe, for Unai Emery, for Marco Silva, for Gary O'Neill, that they have done, and more of them, of course, that they have done an incredible job this season.
He's created a team that's improved every year, and winning 3 championships in a row tells you the story. I think their performances, and the latter part, when it really means something, they produced top-class performance.
Dutch international striker Quincy Promes, already facing trial in the Netherlands for stabbing a cousin, has been charged with importing cocaine. The 31-year-old Spartak Moscow player is accused, along with another 31-year-old Dutchman, of importing several hundred kilos of cocaine in January 2020. According to reports, the player would not be present because of contractual obligations with his club. In March, the Dutch Public Prosecutor's Office requested a 2-year prison sentence for Promes for aggravated assault after he injured a cousin in the knee with a knife during a fight after a family reunion in Apkoude, near Amsterdam, in July 2020. 5 men in the UK who illegally streamed English Premier League football matches to tens of thousands of people were jailed on Tuesday. Members of the gang received prison terms ranging from 3 to 11 years each after the Premier League brought what it said was the world's largest ever prosecution of an illegal streaming network. The defendants, aged between 30 and 46, gathered more than £7 million selling subscriptions to 3 illegal platforms, streaming to over 50,000 customers and resellers. The gang's mastermind, Mark Gold, was sentenced to 11 years in jail at Chesterfield Justice Centre in central England, while the remaining 4 received sentences ranging from 3 to more than 5 years. Before we end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. Federal government representatives are expected to meet with the leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, today by 2 p.m. over the planned removal of fuel subsidy. A total of 118 exhibits have been presented before the 5-member panel of the Presidential Election Petition Court by the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, in his case against President Bola Tinubu. On the foreign scene, Sudan's army has suspended its participation in talks over a ceasefire and humanitarian access, raising fears of renewed fighting that has displaced tens of thousands of people. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Westernspring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Westernspring Television. That ends Spring News at 12. I am Okpayemuni. Thanks for watching.